Today's webinar is about involving our suppliers and customers in our daily business. I can see a problem with the fact that the construction industry consists of a great number of small, often one-man companies that are facing the challenges of constant change in the modern global market. Change driven by conscious consumers who are not satisfied with anything else than world-class products and services. Consumers that are used to that their smartphone works from day one and demands beautiful design and possibility to express their individuality in some way. This will put pressure of change even in the construction industry. Consumers that demand that the companies manufacturing their houses and cars take their social and sustainable responsibility. This will put a pressure of change even in the construction industry. Okay, how does a small company act in this environment? My research is trying to show how we can gain synergy effects for small and medium-sized companies. My thesis will ask and hopefully answer the question how the actors within the house building value chain can integrate suppliers, contractors, and hopefully clients in their product development process and can become even more competitive. The study is performed at the local Swedish sawmill that has the objective to provide good construction products on time to the right price without having the ambition to become a house building company. In a similar manner as Bosch is a supplier to the automotive industry without having the ambition to provide cars themselves. What makes this study so exciting is that the supplier for the construction industry takes a standpoint from a segmentation of the market. It tries to develop competitive products for that specific market instead of just looking at the current production capacity. In order to understand what product development is in industrialized house building, and how it differs from the traditional design phase in construction, we need to take a look on what research says about industrialized house building today. What do I mean with industrialized house building? Well, in my perspective, industrialized house building is doing things differently than your competitors. It is a deliberate selection where a manufacturer sells specific products to a customer. In a similar way that IKEA differs itself from traditional furniture companies with their offering, the industrialized house builder or contractors differs from the traditional contractor with their offering. This strategy admits the industrialized house builder to integrate its activities within sales, design, production, purchasing, and supply chain management compared to a traditional contractor. Industrial house building does not mean that one moves the traditional on-site process into a factory. It can even mean that a large portion of the processes are done on-site, but with an industrialized process. The idea of regarding the construction as a process rather than a project becomes the central idea. It is longer not that every single project has to cover development costs for a specific project or object. Industrialized house building is not to design and manufacture square boxes as buildings, which seems to be the general misconception, but it is more of a rational management of processes in order to satisfy a specific market segment, which can be schools, student housing, social housing, hotels, or top-notch apartments. The idea is that a product is delivered through a recurring process. The central thing is the product. Despite if it's a building component, such as the sawmill roofing board, or a building system, as in the case of Lindbäcks Byggmo, Moelven Byggmodul, or Setra, or a ready-made house concept like the NCC P303. By focusing on the product and continuously improve the processes by reducing waste, the supplier or the contractor will have a continuously improved sales, design, production, purchasing, and supply chain management process. Traditional construction offering is infinite flexibility, but it cannot ever focus its development and does mean in practice that they will develop working methods for the construction site without the ability to re-engineer the process the way the industrialized house building contractor will be able to. However, a product demands that one puts down time, resources, and money in describing, selling, manufacturing, and storing the product. The design phase normally considered in house building is that, what I call product development. It is performed during each and every project where decisions of parameters and investigations are done during the design phase. From an industrialized house building, product development is done ahead of the actual project by defining critical parameters and thereby adding costs and risk before the company has any orders and defining what can be described as a component, building system or a house model depending on the industrialized house building position in the value flow and their business model. But how can a small supplier or a subcontractor, where often the manager is the only development resource, be able to commit resources and time for product development in this reality we call the construction industry? How does buyers and sellers meet in reality? Well, the reality is partly described where we have a basic structure as in many businesses. After the buyer has decided to buy rather than manufacturing it themselves, the need has to be mapped. After that, the company selects supplier, negotiates, specify the terms, issue a contract, and follow up the purchasing during the actual project. There is also a basic structure that supports this process both through administrative regulations, technical descriptions, and through general conditions. The legal structure is very good if one needs to make the projects to deliver. Let's face it, compared to many other industries, the building projects do often finish. Unfortunately, does it not support product development, which often demands communication, dialogue, creativity, mutual trust, and common risk-taking for an integrated solution in an integrated supply chain? It's the opposite. Back to my original question, how the small contractor or supplier with few resources can develop products and take the risk. My research supports the standpoint that the best way is to collaborate within the value chain instead of antagonize with each other. Instead of using the methods that large international construction companies do, the small actor can develop products together with their customers and suppliers. This demands long-term relationships, mutual trust, and not to let the individual project take the cost of development for a recurring process. That will not lead to any development. This can be done by issuing longer contracts and demand continuous improvements within the contract from their suppliers, and that the suppliers take responsibility in systematically improve the product without using the form of change orders. By collaborative product development, the stress on the single actor will be less. What problems do I foresee with this then? Small companies are often dependent on one person who is often both managing director and the owner, often the only development resource at the company. An example of this is during recession when a company should focus on development, all available time is spent on finding new customers and maintain cash flow. It is therefore essential for the small company to pick out the development projects with great precision and care, where the buyer has to state their long-term interests. The legal structure, that is, the purchasing document or the partnering agreement, must incorporate long-term product development in order to catalyze collaborative product development. There is no place for bargains. You can make a bargain once by being smart, but that's only once. There is also a demand for product thinking in order to be able to work with product development. It also demands mutual trust, and it is not possible to develop products through handling change order forms. Last but not least, there is a need to find simple methods, workaround checklists, working with modeling or mock-ups that support a small company. It cannot be a large set of regulations or extensive documentation, but it means that the actors do need to grasp the information revolution and the use of modern methods. I would like to finish by saying that I'm completely convinced that collaborative product development and supply chain integration will make the actors with this value chain more effective and efficient than their competing value chain. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Ska vi klippa in den här podden då?
En till applåd då, för nu drar jag...